Hello and welcome to a video reaction, I guess a rare one on this channel. But you guys know I love the Epic History video. Recently I did the Rise of China episode 3, but they've already got a new video, so I figured rather than wait until I do a stream down the line, then I have to cut out the video, I'll just do it in a video reaction like this, which I don't do often on this clip channel, basically. But yeah, this is the next episode of the American Revolution by Epic History TV, just Epic History these days, I guess. The 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill. Okay, never heard of it. Again, that's why I'm watching this series. I really don't know much about the Revolution, though I've learned a lot already from the first 2 episodes. Last time was the Lexington and something else. Mainly, you know, the start of the mess, right? Some British troops managed to get into America. They were going somewhere. They got big ambushed. They lost a bunch of men. They retreated to Boston, I believe. And I think that's where we ended. As well as, I guess, they were about to appoint Washington as like the overall leader of the army against the British. And we know that eventually he will be president of the United States. But yeah, again, like, outside of that, I literally don't know anything that happens in between that and that, you know, like, what I know of the timeline after this is, what, you know, America wins, the British lose, and Mr. Washington is president. So yeah, should be very, very interesting. So link for the original video, as always, in the description, the link to the Epic History channel, my Discord, Stream Element, Patreon. And as always, before people comment again telling me, can you do the Napoleon series? As I've said before, like, I've watched that series many times. I'm always checking out any reaction to it. So no, I can't really do it. I've already seen it many times. I know everything about it. And that's also why I'm reacting to many Epic History videos, right? Because I love their stuff, but I feel like there's never enough reaction, you know. That's the gist of it. Let's check it out.
April 1775. A British ship carries an urgent message across the Atlantic to the American colonies. Britain's Parliament has passed a conciliatory resolution, a last-ditch effort by Prime Minister Lord North to avert conflict with the colonies.
I guess it was all skirmishes so far.
Is en route to America. It is a 6-week voyage. By the time it arrives, the shooting has started.
I see.
At Lexington and Concord.
So it was decided before
Blood
that.
has been spilled. The war has begun. Lord North's conciliatory resolution is met with defiance in
I was gonna say, like, was it good? Was it something that, you know, if the fighting hadn't already started, would it have actually worked out?
colonial assemblies and the Continental Congress. Its terms, which do not concede Parliament's right to tax the colony.
Colonies must contribute the cost of common defense. Colonies must cover cost of royal government and administration. Colonies may raise additional tax subject to parliamentary approval. Parliament retains power to impose tax on commerce. There's still too many tax. I don't think it would have gone through, not at that point.
Offer far too little, too late.
Yeah.
The reply from Congress, written by Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Richard Henry Lee, is a litany of unredressed grievances.
Okay.
The Coercive Acts, the Quebec Act, Vice Admiralty Courts. The list goes on.
Yeah, there was a lot of bullshit already.
Negotiations are faltering, with fatal consequences. The fighting will continue, and is about to reach bloody new heights.
Alright. Part 3. These fellows say we won't fight. By heaven, I hope I shall die up to my knee in blood. Joseph Warren, Battle of Bunker Hill.
June 1775. The main British force in America is in Boston, commanded by General Thomas Gage.
Just 4,000 men.
To 6,000 regulars.
just 6,000 though.
But he is besieged by 15,000 New England militia. These men are highly motivated and have proven capable in combat, but they lack discipline and ammunition.
The British can escape by sea, worst case scenario.
Prior to the arrival of their new commander-in-chief, George Washington, they are under the command of Artemus Ward, a sickly 47-year-old militia officer of limited experience. Nevertheless, under his direction, the militia have fortified the heights overlooking the Charlestown Peninsula.
Charlestown, no?
From these positions, cannon could target British ships in Boston's inner harbor. General Gage decides he must eliminate this threat and decides to seize the heights as a step to breaking the siege.
We need a boat to go over there though.
Not only to avenge British honor, tarnished by the shambolic retreat from Concord. As General Burgoyne points out, it will also allay any doubt
that trained troops are invincible against any numbers or any position of undisciplined rabble.
I wouldn't use the word invincible. I mean, you do have an advantage, but come on.
Gage orders Major General William Howe to make a frontal assault on Breed's Hill with 2,500 men. They are supported by naval ships, a floating battery of mortars, and cannon from Copp's Hill.
That's pretty good, though.
But the attack does not go to plan.
Wow. Oh, look at that. The artillery is so good.
Fences and earthworks, the undisciplined rabble pours a devastating close-range fire into the British ranks.
I guess, yeah, when you think about it, you could say that maybe in the time of, like, you know, swords and different melee weapons, but a gun is a gun. Even though muskets weren't super accurate, you know, whether you're, like, untrained rabble or not, like, a gun is a gun.
General Howe orders a second attack. It meets the same bloody repulse. Hundreds of regulars fall. Some British units lose half their men or more.
Damn.
Spurred on by the leadership of John Stark, James Reed, and Joseph Warren, the Patriot militia are holding their ground. But they are running out of ammunition. The chain of command has broken down amid the chaos of battle. Hundreds of reinforcements mill about in confusion on Bunker Hill, while their comrades fight for their lives. When Howe launches a third attack on Breed's Hill, the militia finally break in the face of British bayonets. The Redcoats' fury as they storm the redoubt is terrible.
Look at that.
A British lieutenant is shocked by the slaughter.
I cannot pretend to describe the horror of the scene. It was streaming with blood and strewed with dead and dying men. The soldiers stabbing some and dashing out the brains of others was a sight too dreadful for me to dwell any longer on.
The British take the heights, but are in no condition to follow up their success. In what becomes known as the Battle of Bunker Hill, they have lost 200 dead and more than 800 wounded. By contrast, Patriot casualties are around 450, but include the charismatic Joseph Warren, president of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress. A commissioned officer who'd insisted on fighting as a private soldier He was shot down in the redoubt during the final assault, becoming
Respect,
a
though.
martyr to the cause.
Standing with the troops, respect.
For the Patriots, the battle, though a defeat, is a major morale boost. They have stood their ground against British redcoats and tested them to the limit.
You know, I was watching some other video recently where we were looking at some fashion a little bit, maybe around this time, and I must say, looking at the American fashion here, not bad. Huh? It looks a lot less goofy than some of the British, you know, like the crazy wigs, the powder on the face, and even like some of the outfits, you know, like those clothes that always look too big or too small on them. You know, they won the battle and they might win in fashion, in my estimation.
For the British, it is a
The hats are
lesson
cool.
learned.
That's what I
The
mean.
rebels' determination and fighting spirit must be taken seriously,
Well, yeah.
as General Sir Henry Clinton remarks.
A few more such victories would have shortly put an end to British dominion in America.
They will not make the same mistake again.
But it's already the second time, though. Like, after the battle of last time, one of the guy from it, I remember the quote, literally said that, yeah, like, they should not underestimate them as just a simple militia or something. And then they just did the same thing again. They underestimated them, yeah. I mean, different leaders, I guess. Many other subjects in North America, misled by dangerous and ill-designing men, have at length proceeded to open an Harvard rebellion. George III. Proclamation of
That summer,
rebellion.
British authority across the 13 colonies begins to disintegrate. The governors of North and South Carolina, Virginia, New York, and New Hampshire have all been forced to flee their homes. Others resign, while in Connecticut, John Trumbull sides with the Patriots. Only in New Jersey and Georgia do British-appointed governors retain any control. The British have barely any troops in America outside of Boston, a fact which is underscored when frontiersman Ethan Allen leads a band of New Hampshire militia to storm Fort Ticonderoga, held by a skeleton force of just 48 redcoats.
That's so little.
Just 48
They have more cannons than men. That's insane. 59 cannons. Not enough men to use all the cannons.
redcoats. The so-called Gibraltar of North America falls without a shot fired, and the rebels seize 59 heavy guns from its arsenal.
The guy is not even dressed. He isn't gonna fight.
Yet even now, there are those on both sides who seek a peaceful way out of the crisis.
Understandable.
Moderates, like John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, believe the colonies are too divided among themselves to survive without British protection. He foresees
a multitude of commonwealths, crimes, and calamities, centuries of mutual jealousies, hatreds, wars of devastation, till at last the exhausted provinces shall sink into slavery under the yoke of some fortunate conqueror.
Frankly, I mean, it's not like, it sounds a bit over the top, but I don't know. If you look at the history of the world and many other countries, yeah, especially like considering how America is so young at this point and all that, yeah, a lot of the different little states will have different ideas, which might very likely lead to them fighting at some point. It's not crazy. Yeah, it's not crazy one bit. But obviously we know it didn't happen like that.
some cling to a belief that King George III is sympathetic to their cause, but has been led astray by his dishonest and corrupt ministers.
Of course,
In July,
the king is always a good guy.
at Dickinson's urging, the Second Continental Congress sends a new petition to the king.
We solemnly assure your majesty that we most ardently desire the former harmony between Great Britain and these colonies may be restored. Your majesty's ministers, persevering in their measures and proceeding to open hostilities for enforcing them, have compelled us to arm in our own defense. We therefore beseech your majesty to settle peace through every part of your dominions, with all humility, submitting to your majesty's wise consideration.
It becomes known as the Olive Branch Petition, but it is beaten to London by news and maimed British soldiers from Bunker Hill.
Well, then I guess it's the same as before, right? Like, it's too little too late on that side as well, yeah?
In August, George III declares his American colonies to be in open rebellion. The British Empire begins to assemble its might to reclaim the colonies by force.
Well, His Excellency General Washington has arrived among us. Universally admired, joy was visible on every countenance. General Nathanael Greene.
On the 2nd of July, 1775, General...
It's really interesting, again, like, knowing Washington, I know, like, all I know about him is that, like, he was president, and before being president, he was, like, you know, a famous leader in the American Revolution, but I guess he was already famous even before that. It seems like even before the start of the revolution, he was known as, like, a cool guy. Never knew that.
George Washington arrives outside Boston to take command of the newly christened Continental Army. Until recently, he'd been living a relatively quiet life as a Virginia plantation owner and local representative. But his...
Is he the one that eventually, like, abolished slavery? And he had a plantation before? I wonder if that, like, was one of the things that... I mean, every plantation had slaves, right? Or not? But I was going to say, I wonder if that's one of the things that made him decide to abolish slavery, because he saw it firsthand and all that. But I'm not sure if he's the guy that abolished it. I think he is, right? No, was it Lincoln? Okay. I'm embarrassing myself, but I can't remember. Yeah.
Military experience from the French and Indian War, serving as a lieutenant colonel of militia, exceeds that of nearly any other American-born officer.
Okay.
Through an advantageous marriage to Martha Custis, he is also one of the richest men in America, with a natural air of authority. Dr. Benjamin Rush, a congressional delegate from Pennsylvania, observes,
"He has so much martial dignity in his deportment that you would distinguish him to be a general and a soldier from among 10,000 people."
He has a vibe, okay.
On arrival, Washington discovers the Continental Army to be in a deplorable state. Many soldiers lack proper muskets, and ammunition remains in critically short supply. There are few cannon, or even uniforms. Supply and logistics are in shambles. Discipline is virtually non-existent. The camp is a jumble of tents, ill-placed latrines, and unfinished earthworks.
There's a lot to do.
Officers fraternize with their men, who simply come and go as they please. Washington is aghast, but immediately gets to work.
I mean, it was a militia, I mean, it's volunteers. Like, no one's getting paid here, so it makes sense that it was like that so far, yeah?
Officers are given sashes or cockades to distinguish them from their men.
Brigadier General, aide de camp, Major General, Commander-in-Chief, Captain, Colonel, Lieutenant, Sergeant, Corporal.
Severe punishments are introduced for desertion, fighting, and even swearing.
Swearing.
Crucially, Washington orders his men be
What the fuck?
inoculated for smallpox, which has erupted across Massachusetts. This practice, also used by the British, may have saved his army from destruction.
Disease was the killer of army back then.
Congress has appointed several generals to serve
battles,
under
disease.
Washington's overall command, for a mix of practical, military, and political reasons. Some will win fame, others infamy, in the years ahead. Nathaniel Greene, a young Rhode Island Quaker, who's educated himself in the art of war. He will become a close friend of Washington and his most able commander.
Okay.
Charles Lee, an irascible and arrogant career soldier,
Have a name, Lee.
disillusioned with the mother country. He is arguably the most experienced officer in the colonies, and Washington's second in command.
Aid to the King of Poland. That's something. Okay.
Israel Putnam, a veteran soldier from Connecticut, nicknamed Old Put. He served with distinction in the French and Indian War, and more recently at Bunker Hill. John Sullivan, an aggressive New Hampshire officer who had previously served in the Continental Congress. Horatio Gates, another disillusioned British officer, capable but privately contemptuous of Washington. These men and their officers must now pull together an unruly army summoned from across the colonies. From independent-minded New Englanders to equally stubborn riflemen from Virginia and Pennsylvania, each man with more instinctive loyalty to his colony than to any shared cause.
I see, yeah.
However, Washington's greatest concern is a lack of gunpowder. By one estimate, there's enough for each man to fire just 9 rounds.
That's not great with
This,
how
together with the
inaccurate they are.
challenges of supply and discipline, means he can do little more than hold the fortifications around Boston.
How long does it take to load one musket at a time? Still less than a minute. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, they can fight for, a few minutes and just then give up.
Fortunately for the Continental Army, the British have problems of their own. Boston is riddled with smallpox. Most British soldiers have been inoculated or exposed to the disease, though some still fall sick. Bostonians themselves suffer much more greatly.
As always, the civilian.
Of greater concern, now they are bottled up in Boston, is that British supply lines now stretch more than 3,000 miles back across the Atlantic to Britain. British ships are now vulnerable to American privateers and the first vessels of a fledgling continental navy.
It's so far away. I mean, I know we see Britain was very strong. They had a lot of colony. They won a lot of battle. They had a strong army. But it's still insane that, they thought that this was a good idea, starting this war in America where, again, when they send reinforcement, supplies, any news, any new orders and all that, it takes 6 weeks to go there, 6 weeks to come back. It's kind of insane. I'm sure they give some level of freedom of operation to some of the leaders that they send over there, but even then, it's so freaking far away and cut off. It's kind of insane. I mean, most of the time they were successful is when they would intervene in Europe's war, right? And obviously, it wasn't the biggest gap between Britain and Europe. It was a very small gap for them to get there, right? So to have the news go from one side to the other. So it's kind of insane, yeah, 6 weeks one side, 6 weeks the other side.
The supply situation in Boston becomes critical, with starvation a growing fear. That the British find themselves in this predicament is widely blamed on General Gage's leadership. He is recalled to London, and command passes to General William Howe.
And you are
But under
besieged.
the present
They have less men.
circumstances,
What do you want them
there
to
is
do?
little he can do
Yeah,
to change British fortunes.
what do you want them to do? Okay, like, why do they hold Boston is the question. They should just board their ship and try to go inland somewhere else where they're not literally besieged. If that man is not crushed before spring, he will become the most formidable enemy America has. Washington about Lord Dunmore.
As the siege of Boston drags on, in Virginia, Governor Lord Dunmore holes up in Norfolk under the protection of Royal Navy warships. From here, he comes up with a plan to crush the rebellion in Virginia. Across the southern colonies, roughly half the population are enslaved black men, women, and children.
Use the slave.
Most work on plantations, where they are treated with appalling brutality. As a result, the white population's greatest fear is a mass
Revolt.
slave revolt. In November 1775, Lord Dunmore attempts to turn this fear into reality.
Okay. How's it gonna help?
require every person capable of bearing arms to resort to His Majesty's standard, or be looked upon as traitors. And I do hereby farther declare all indented servants, Negroes, or others, free, that are able and willing to bear arms, they joining His Majesty's troops as soon as may be.
I see. I see. Like, I wonder how bullshit that was, right? Like, sure, he'd be very happy if they fight for him and help win everything, but then I feel like the second things are done, they would put them back into chains. I'm guessing that's probably the plan. That makes sense, though, I guess. Like, obviously, you know, it's such an easy move, but will it work? Probably not.
It is a direct appeal to Virginia's slaves. Freedom for those who take up arms against their rebel masters. Nothing could be more incendiary.
500,000
Few
enslaved
patriots
Americans.
consider the cause of liberty to extend to enslaved black Americans.
Yeah, not
And
yet.
in the South, Dunmore's proclamation threatens the destruction of the entire economy and society itself. Without irony, patriots condemn Dunmore's promise of freedom as a violation of all law, justice, and humanity.
Okay. It's kind of cooked to say that about, you know, about like freeing the slave when slavery itself is a violation of all law, justice, and humanity. This is kind of insane to say. All right.
To Washington, he is the arch traitor to the rights of humanity.
Huh?
Within a month, 300 escaped slaves have reached Dunmore's base in Norfolk, where they form the new Royal Ethiopian Regiment.
Okay.
Thousands more will seek freedom behind the British lines before the war is over.
I mean, I guess if you're a slave, you know, I can't blame them. Like, I'd definitely do that too. It's like, you know, you probably wouldn't fully believe that they mean it, but there's a chance, right? So might as well take it. I mean, like, yeah, might as well take it.
The price of Dunmore's proclamation is to turn southern landowners into mortal enemies of the British cause.
Well,
Norfolk is a loyalist stronghold.
also he's doing this without asking the British in the first place, right? He's doing this of his own idea.
But unable to secure supplies for his forces, Dunmore decides to abandon it.
Is there
In the
slavery in
process,
Britain at this time?
On New Year's Day 1776, Norfolk burns to the ground. Both sides blame the other. It is the largest but not the last settlement to be destroyed in the war.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. A pity our good general who has greater burden on his shoulders and more difficulties to struggle with than I think I should fall to the share of so good a man. James Warren to John Adams.
That winter, the standoff continues at Boston, with conditions deteriorating for both sides.
Freezing.
Life in the American camp is miserable.
We have suffered prodigiously for want of wood. Many regiments have been obliged to eat their provisions raw for want of firing to cook. And notwithstanding, we have burned up all the fences and cut down all the trees for a mile around the camp. Our suffering has been inconceivable.
Man.
The only good news comes at sea, where American privateers continue to intercept British ships carrying food and supplies.
I was wondering if there was like enough American fleet to do anything like that, or if the British could just come and not be stopped.
On the 29th of November, they score their biggest prize yet, the brig Nancy, carrying 2,000 muskets and ammunition.
That's what you need.
But Washington faces another looming crisis. Most of his men have signed up to fight only until the end of 1775. And given the conditions, few plan to stay any longer. December brings heavy snow.
But then what? I mean, I understand that the conditions are terrible, but what's the plan for like those normal guys? Like they should, well, I don't know if they realize, but you know, they've already started this madness. So like, if you just kind of like stop fighting and America lose the war, it will just mean that the country is in an ever worse state, as you know, the British will retake power and probably like be even more harsh on the place. Yeah. Though I don't understand at the same time, like I assume a lot of the soldiers were there, like, you know, barely eating, half dying, freezing, probably not paid or barely paid. You know, even if you believe in a cause, it's like, you know, when you're in this kind of condition, it's easy to like stop caring. I can imagine. I can't blame them, yeah.
Expiry of the first enlistments. Despite the pleading, threats, and curses of their officers, almost half of Washington's men pack up and march for home.
Yeah, I can understand. Especially in a situation like this, like even if as a normal soldier you understand like it's a siege, not much we can do. It's also like, yeah, like you feel like you're doing absolutely nothing, right? You're just literally like freezing to death, slowly dying over here, waiting for something to happen. Like you're not even fighting in battles that might actually like be worth something. You're literally just waiting. So as a regular soldier, I understand, yeah.
Take with them not only their muskets and equipment, but their hard-won experience.
There. Yeah.
Washington is distraught. By January 1776, his force has been reduced to less than half its summer peak. There are now just 9,000 men under his command.
You need to appeal to the patriotic spirit a lot more. You need a big propaganda campaign.
General Howe's forces are not in much better shape. The British are even considering evacuating Boston.
Yeah, why do you need to hold Boston specifically?
Then, later that month,
attack from somewhere else.
Shocking news arrives in the American camp, carried in pamphlets and letters. King George III has addressed Parliament on the subject of America. From the King's own lips, the Patriots hear their cause condemned as a desperate conspiracy, whose ideas are repugnant to the true constitution of the colonies. He lays all blame for the conflict on the Americans. He promises an overwhelming military response. In that moment, the Patriots' last lingering hopes of reconciliation die. To Americans like General Nathaniel Greene, it's nothing short of betrayal.
Heaven hath decreed that tottering empire Britain to irretrievable ruin.
Okay.
And thanks to God, since Providence hath so determined, America must raise an empire of permanent duration, supported upon the grand pillars of truth, freedom, and religion, encouraged by the smiles of justice, and defended by her own patriotic sons.
Good speech.
For Washington, it's the final nail in the coffin of relations with Great Britain.
We are
So even
determined
he was
to
thinking
shake off all connections
it
with
might
a
be
state
solved.
so unjust and unnatural. This I would tell them, not under covert, but in words as clear as the sun in its meridian brightness.
Everybody being so
Until
poetic.
now, many patriots have shied away from calls for independence. But the mood has changed. The King's open hostility.
Well, yeah, now there's literally like no choice. Now you're confirmed. I mean, I'm sure there's still some people who are going to say like this is fake news, right? So, like some people are going to think that it's, you know, this declaration is maybe not the word of the king. Maybe it's being controlled by his ministers and his adversary. And maybe this is all bullshit. But for the most part, I think everybody understands, yeah, like now there's no point. It's like either just lose and it will be terrible, or try to win and maybe something good will come out of it. It's that simple. At least now there's no doubt anymore.
The provocations of Lord Dunmore. The blood shed at Bunker Hill. Only a full break from Britain will answer.
Yeah.
But Britain is preparing to fight back.
Yeah. And they're pretty good at fighting. Yeah. You know what this shot make me think? For anyone who's seen the TV show Black Sails, literally the shot of the British coming to Nassau.
Do you enjoy epic history videos
Yeah,
and
and
want to support our...
I enjoy them a lot, yes, but I cannot afford Patreon. Great video, as always, yeah. Obviously, if you can support Epic History on Patreon, do so. The best history channel on YouTube, I dare say, yeah. Okay, this one was interesting. The battle was definitely on a smaller scale, right? But still clearly important. And then it was mostly about the politics and some of the events. Frankly, like right now, things don't look good for America one bit. And again, I literally have no idea what happens. I'm guessing that they're just gonna manage to raise a much bigger army, because right now it's like absolute doom. Even if the British don't send like 100,000 reinforcements, even if it's only like 15, 20,000, it's, you know, kind of crazy odds, right? The one thing I'm confused about, like, why are they holding Boston so much? Yeah, like, why does Boston matter to be held when it's like an island and you're besieged and it's not a good strategic position? I mean, wouldn't it be smarter for them to just board their ship and try to go land somewhere else where they're not besieged? They can actually, you know, easily get inland and all that. I don't know. I guess it's a stronghold, and all that, but again, there seem to be like no great way to get out of it there, so I don't know. I'm no military guy, right? But yeah, very interesting. Another great episode. I've learned a lot. I look forward to the next one. I'm guessing with the way they're releasing it in the titles, next one is going to be released on the day of whatever, like next big date in the American Revolution, which I have no idea which one is next. So maybe it's a few months, maybe it's less than that. I don't know. But clearly with the British fleet coming, probably thousands of soldiers, it's going to be big. Yeah. But right now, it looks very bleak for America. Like, when you think about it, it's like, how can they make this work? I mean, they probably don't have the money to pay for a massive army. And even if you use patriotic fervor and all that on the regular people, at this point, you know, it's probably hard to convince people to join. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But yeah, great video, as always. Glad I checked it out. So yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed the reaction. As I say, there's literally like never enough reaction to Epic History. I mean, there always needs to be more, so suggest their videos to more channel. All I can say. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time. See you.